Hey everybody, happy Valentine's Day to you. Get ready for the Witches Movie Coven. Grab your goat, grab your wand. Today you better grab your cauldron because we are doing I Married a Witch from 1942. I hope you guys watched it. I'm not even going to talk about it yet, but it's a witchy little film, sort of. My name is Patti Negri. I am one of your hosts, and I'm going to just pass it around to everybody introduce themselves, starting with Jason Mankey.
I'm Jason Mankey. I've written 9 witchcraft books for Llewellyn so far in my life, and happy Valentine's Day to my beloved coven. My wife's not home, so you all are all I've got tonight.
Oh. Richard-Lael.
That would be me. I am Richard-Lael. Richard-Lael is one name, not two. If I were just Richard, I'd be a... Anyway, it is so lovely to have each and every one of your faces here for Valentine's Day, for Saturnalia. Saturnalia, is that right? Yes, I think so. I don't know. What is it? What is
Lupercalia?
Lupercalia, that one. I can't remember. But anyway, I am so glad to have you. And I have my wand here, as you see. I have my little Cupid right there.
Thank you. And Miss Courtney.
That's me. I'm Courtney Buckley, Ghost Bait on Scared and Alone, coven member of the Witches Movie Coven, hater of all things Valentine's Day because love stinks. Yeah. I was feeling left out today because there was a text that said that you all were going to wear red, and I only buy clothing in black to match my cold dead heart. So this is the best I can do, guys.
That's great, Courtney.
It's going to be one of those nights on the show. One of those
Our
nights.
panties forever. They will work on your head just as well as they will on your other side. That is beautiful. She has red.
These are unused, so nobody panic.
No. I think Richard-Lael has been wearing them for months now.
Yeah,
that's true.
The only bottom that they've touched is this. On the pillow.
That's not a bottom. That's top.
You're going to have to start wearing them, Courtney, on other than your head.
There is so much to unpack there that we're not going to unpack.
Happy Valentine's Day.
And we're moving on to Heather.
Hi, I am Heather Greene. I wrote a book called Lights, Camera, Witchcraft, which is a definitive guide to witches and witchcraft in Hollywood movies. And this movie is in the book, of course. It almost takes up a whole chapter, actually. So I'm going to try to stay quiet, which is hard for me to do as a Gemini. And I am an editor at Llewellyn and a journalist covering occult and all things magical in the media. So that's generally what I do. And I'm happy to be here with my coven on Valentine's Day.
Thank you so much. We are here. We thank all of you in the chat room. Keep it chatting because we watch, we listen, we read, we put them up on board sometimes. You probably know me from Ghost Adventures, or now I'm also with the team Ghost Finders on Paraflix, or my podcast, The Witching Hour. So tune in, follow us all, like us all. We'll do anything at the end of the show that we have coming up. But this week's movie, it's an old one. It's a black and white one. It is called I Married a Witch from 1942. Now, hopefully you all watched it, but just in case somebody didn't watch it, Richard-Lael, do you have your explanation of the film in your unbiased opinion?
It is completely unbiased. Before I begin, I want to thank you because my ring light went out. So apparently I'm not getting a ring this Valentine's Day. So I have it burned out. I couldn't even figure it out. So I've got this lovely little hurricane lamp right here. I'm not going to bring it in because they'll blind you. I've got a hurricane lamp because I'm an old-fashioned kind of guy for an old-fashioned kind of film. So I Married a Witch, 1942, stars Veronica Lake and a whole bunch of other people that I didn't care to remember their names. In the 17th century, Salem witches got burned at stake because it's so accurate. Like Courtney always says, witches always got burned at stake in Salem in the 1600s. And so out of revenge, they go into a tree and she curses the family that they always have to, every son has to always marry the wrong woman. And generation upon generation upon generation of men marry the wrong woman. But they come back, the tree has, they've struck, lightning has struck the tree exposes them, they come back, they decide, okay, now let's wreak some havoc. The only way that we can wreak havoc is, well, if he falls in love with someone that he can't have, and as a witch, he'll never fall in love. But the plan backfires because she gets bumped on the head by a painting, and then she drinks the potion and has now fallen in love with him. And then I Dream of Jeannie comes in and has a battle with Samantha Stevens. And then, so there's a lot of smoke, and a lot of mirrors. And then, and then she proves that she loves him by committing mass voter fraud, by literally changing all of the votes so that they match him, so that he's now the governor of Massachusetts, because obviously, we don't talk about voter fraud here, but voter fraud. And then he, of course, loves her so much. Then father ends up by stealing a body because smoke. Taxi driver crashes back into the tree, says that they're going he's going to force her back into not being a witch. She has to be in the tree until she gives up this foolish mortal notion. And then somehow she tricks him into thinking that she is no longer affected by this man. And so she goes back into her body, and he goes back into a bottle where he's drunk for eternity. And then they have a little girl who is a witch. The end.
That's really pretty much it.
Thank you very much. Now that it's clear in everyone's mind, and hope you saw it as well as that lovely explanation. Heather, if we have a whole chapter in your book, give us some of the more academic and facts on this beautiful or not so beautiful film.
So this is a really fun film because there weren't a lot of witch films that happened during this period of time. This was a golden era. This was a censored era. And I actually just wrote an article, which I'm hoping it's going to come out soon, to really describe how censored. People don't realize how censored the golden era of Hollywood was and how it was censored. So witchcraft wasn't censored, but because of the way the censors worked, there was very few witchcraft films at this time. And this one was really indicative of more of not how we were looking at witchcraft, but how we were treating women and gender. So that's what this film, so that's really the crux of a lot of what I talk about with this film. But it was based on a book called The Passionate Witch, which was originally published, a pulp book that was originally published in 1930. No, it was really written in the early 1930s, very misogynistic. Finished, the guy died, I think, and then it was finished in the late 30s, early 40s, picked up as a property, and then made into this film. The problem was the original book. There it is. As you can see from this is actually not the original cover. That's closer to the original cover, I believe. It was about this guy who was very good religious Christian, who marries this woman who turns out to be a satanic witch. In the book, she is evil, okay? She is not Veronica Lake. She is not silly. She is not fun. She is not making mistakes. She actually has a ritual. She speaks in tongues. She speaks Bible things backwards. She murders a chicken. She does all this stuff. She is actually the villain in the book.
That sounds like a good time to me.
I knew that was going to come.
I feel like we got the bad version of this movie. Like,
yeah,
it should have been the original book.
This is the original book. So it was written as a pulp book, and the books could be public. Books could actually have that content. There was no censorship. Okay. It's very misogynistic. They make fun of women in it. Oh, there's all kinds of stuff going on there. And the drawings are very spicy for the time too. If you go back and look at the old drawings that were in the book. But Hollywood would not have been able to produce it. One of the censorship things was you can't make evil alluring. So there was no way that they could have done this book. There's no way they could have produced an evil witch that was sexy in the way it was in The Passionate Witch. So this was totally different. It's a screwball comedy, very typical of the era, early wartime. It definitely is also misogynistic, but you have a lot of fun with the witch. The dad is so fun. One of the first films that we see a family witch situation where a witch is sort of a family thing. They're not human, they're witches. It's a different thing going on. We also see I can't remember. Anyway, forget that. So the other important thing to know is Veronica Lake was a sex symbol. So even though Hollywood producers and filmmakers could not do The Passionate Witch the way the book was written to make it sexy, they did it subtly. They added Veronica Lake in. And if you look at that. This is what I wanted to show everybody is even though the movie couldn't do that, they actually used promo images that were more risque because they could get past the censors doing that. So Veronica Lake was a big portion of this that subtly introduced that sexy aspect that they could not do in the story itself. So that's fun. And the last thing I'm going to say is that a lot of people, and I saw people on Facebook talking about this, they think that this was the premise of Bewitched. Bewitched was actually not based on this. It was not, Bewitched was not a redo of this. People think that it typically was this one in Bell Book and Candle. They were inspired by the idea, but they're not actually, Bewitched was not actually based on this or based on the same. They all had their own sources. Bell Book and Candle had its own source. This one had its own source. And Bewitched was sort of inspired by those, but then took its own path in many ways. We talked about that. So those are some of the fun stuff, some of the academic stuff. There's so much more to talk about. And I urge you, if you really are interested in diving deep into this, read the chapter in the book. I compare it to other witch films, and it's a very interesting movie in its time. So, and it's super fun. So that's my commentary for now. Yeah.
Heather, has anyone ever tried to like readapt this or do a new version of it? I don't want to give away everything, but this was fun. This was a really fun movie.
It is. And you know what? I don't think they did. I don't think they have. Interestingly, I can't recall that there being even in another adaptation of Passionate Witch. But it could be done in a modern way, taking out some of the super, I hate women and women have to sit in a corner and knit like the end, which is I get into all of that kind of stuff in the book, but they could really do some fun stuff with this, some good comedy. I mean, she took her own love spell by accident. How funny is that? That alone.
I thought she was crazy sexy. If they're saying that sexy wasn't allowed, she was crazy sexy. I thought,
Yeah.
She was naked in a fur coat. So
right?
Yeah. How could you be more so?
I have a story.
Okay.
I have a story. I don't know if I should tell you the story.
Is this you naked in a fur coat?
That's what I was thinking.
In a fur coat. I'm going to tell you. So when I lived in San Francisco, there was a bar that would it didn't matter as long as you were presenting yourself as female, would give you free drinks. And so I was broke and I wanted free drinks. So I dressed myself up in my nice fur coat and I went out and I got free drinks. And this fella says to me, "Oh, you're so beautiful. You're such a pretty lady. You're so beautiful. You're so beautiful." And I said, "No, I have bits." And no. He says, "Well, I want to come home with you." And I went, "Okay, but I don't sleep like this." He goes, No, you're so beautiful." And I said, "Okay, fine." So we go back to MySpace, and that was not Facebook at the time. It was MySpace. And we go back to MySpace, and then we have some quiet times. And then he says, "Oh, I've got to get up and go. I've got to work." It was like 3:00 in the morning, and I have to work at 6. I have to be up. And I said, "No, just call in sick. Just stay." And he goes, "No, but I have to work." And I said, "Fine, I'll call you a taxi." So I called him a taxi, and then I actually called him "you taxi." Anyway, I called him a taxi, and then he got up and got dressed, and I put on my white silver fox, and I still had a face full of makeup. And I go down to the street at 3:00 in the morning, and I get him in the car. And then as he drives away, I go, And he sends me a text and he says, that was so beautiful. I nearly jumped out of the taxi. And I said, but you didn't. Now who's the evil witch?
I thought you were going to say something like, and let me take you back to the days of MySpace, back when this movie was filmed. Because, you know, at this point, that's what MySpace feels like to me.
How dare you?
I'm sorry, Courtney. Are you still hanging on to your MySpace account?
Not for a long time, but that's the problem because I don't need to feel this old. Okay, so I'll go because I discovered something about myself watching the movie, and it's not how good I look in red, but it is that I don't hate all old movies. I just hate movies from the 70s because this was delightful. I was not even mad. I was mad for a second when it started and it was the Salem thing, and I was like, oh God, here we go. But as soon as the guy was like hawking witch protection things at the site of the burning, like it was hot dogs at Fenway Park, I was like, okay, I'm on board. I don't even care. Mess it all up. Tell everything wrong. And then when they were the wisps of smoke and they were talking to each other as the wisps of smoke, I was like, okay, this feels like what's that? It's a Wonderful Life. I love It's a Wonderful Life. Like when the stars are talking to each other, I was like, they're wisps of smoke having this conversation. And then they called for the broom, and then the wisps of smoke traveled on the broom. And I thought, that's it. I'm done. I'm in. If this movie cannot go wrong. I love it. It was great. And then like the wisp when she was talking to the fire, he was the fire. And then when he was in the bottle as the smoke and she shot it with the gun. And then when he was in like the body and he sat on the chair and then he jumped up and he was like, oh, still a little warm from the fire, and the chair was like smoking. It was so stupid. It was so stupid, and I loved it so much.
You need
also,
to watch. You need to go and look at more screwball comedies because I mean, for even not which ones, I mean, they are just, it's a brilliant form of comedy. There are some of the funniest scenes coming out of those screwball. Philadelphia Story has the best drunk scene in all of Hollywood's history. And I will quote that movie walking around. I'll knock on doors screaming CK Dexter Haven just for no reason because it's hysterical. Absolutely. Screwball comedies are so fun, Courtney. You need to.
And Cary Grant and Bringing Up Baby.
Oh my God, yes.
And
when
Cary
he's in
Grant,
the robe.
Arsenic and Old Lace. Oh,
yes, the first theater production I was ever in was Arsenic and Old Lace.
We did it too.
I played one of the cops and I bopped a guy on the head. I bopped someone on the head and they passed out and I got a standing ovation.
So much fun.
So I want to tell a story too, actually, because the light.
Were you naked in a fur coat at 3:00 in the morning? Not today.
She was just wearing a pair of underwear on her head.
The lightnings being struck by lightning reminded me of the Salem story. Considering this was made in Salem, or not made in Salem. Oh my God. Considering instead of complaining about what was done wrong about Salem, I thought I'd share a piece of Salem in lieu of that. So there is a cemetery in Salem called Old Burying Point, and this is one of my favorite stories to tell on tour. But inside Old Burying Point, there's this tree, and when you're looking at the tree from the outside, it looks fairly normal. And then when you walk inside and you go around the side of the tree, there's massive damage done to the other side of the tree. And it's because this tree repeatedly gets struck by lightning. But if you look really close at the base of the tree, so the tree is standing like this, it's like right here, there's a headstone, and the words on the headstone are facing the tree. And so the tree is growing out of this person's grave, and it says it's Samuel Pickman, and he died, I think, at age 22. And on his headstone, it says struck by lightning. And so the lightning tree is a famous thing in Salem. So I thought instead of complaining about the thing that makes my skin crawl, which was the burning at the stake, I would instead share with you my favorite Salem story because of the lightning strikes.
Well, maybe they meant that they were really bad cooks and they burned a steak.
I like that better. Yeah.
There actually was a document in the conversations between the producers and the censorship organization. They actually brought up the fact that they're burned and said that they need to remove that. And I can't remember how I think they said they're not going to do it. They weren't going to bother. I can't remember that particular story. And I have to go back to my notes to find it. But Hollywood was very sensitive to that. I think I brought that up before because Salem residents would protest and they would write articles if they did burning. And that was actually brought up numerous times. And it was brought up with this film, but they did not change it. It didn't matter at this point. Sorry, Courtney.
No, perfect. That was it. I love this movie. I'm obsessed with it. I want to watch more movies like this. And that's it. So thank you for choosing this. It has warmed my cold, dead heart on this here Valentine's Day. I still don't believe in love, but I believe in this movie.
You know what I love about these old movies? They're all 75 minutes long. They're none of these 2.5-hour slogs that we sometimes get stuck with, right? This was super fast. Like this was something I watched during lunch today and was happy for it, and it was perfect.
Yeah. No.
And they run, even the way that they run, like they move from things, it's like so stupid. They just run like idiots all around the screen. And every time it happened, I would squeal with joy. It was so exciting.
I loved it. I was really tired going, oh, don't fall asleep, Patty. You can't fall asleep, Patty. This is your one chance to watch it. And I didn't fall asleep. I thought it was so clever and it had a funny adult humor and then silliness, almost Monty Python-esque silliness, like with the, hot dogs at the burning kind of stuff. And it just kept me attached. The acting was great. Fredric March was great. She was great. And because I'm not an expert on old movies and stuff, for me to see them that free in the 1940s was just adorable to me to be free. So I did not fall asleep. I watched it on a small screen and I loved every moment of it because it was cute and funny.
You know what's funny though? I think because there were so many censors, what I think to be so funny is that if you look up Body Blues, I'm not going to tell you some of the names. They could not be played on the radio during the 30s and 40s, 50s. But they could, however, be played on jukeboxes and at private joints. And my favorite new song from 1931 is My Girl's Kitty Cat. And that's all I'm going to say. 1931.
Well, it's interesting about the censorship in the culture with movies specifically, and then TV followed suit and used the same censorship code. But prior to, so movies weren't censored. The censorship code wasn't written until 1930. It didn't actually get enforced until 1934. So prior to that, actually, the very first all nude body in Hollywood film was like 1916. So the movies prior to 1930 had a lot of lewd stuff. Now, compared to what we see today, no, you're not going to look at a 1915, a 1920 film and go, oh my goodness, close my eyes, like, rated R, rated X. No, but comparatively,
you might see a nipple.
You will see stuff. Yeah. It's there. I mean, they did drinking. I mean, the reason why the code was put in was because of that. So the movies and films prior to 1930 are going to have more stuff. But if you really pay a close attention to golden era films, it didn't go away. It just got coded. So every time, like in a romantic moment when there is going to be some quiet time, as Richard-Lael suggested, if that is absolutely in the cards and coming down the pipe as far as the storyline, what happens is they kiss romantically, fully clothed in like the living room, and then it cuts to like waves crashing on the shore. Dancing also stood in for it. Smoking cigarettes, light my cigarette. You saw that a lot. So there's stand-ins and codes for all of that stuff. And if you watch closely, you can catch it.
And Mae West was the best at that sort of double entendre.
Yep.
Tabitha.
Oh no, Tabitha. But just talking about this, why those movies in the 70s are so outrageous and so wild is because everybody was finally able to release their tension, so to speak, and actually be able to display all this stuff artistically and gratuitously.
I feel like they should have kept Quiet Time quiet in the 70s.
Oh, there I am. That was from Halloween last year.
I was your date that night, sir.
Yes, you were. But I was like that, excepting I was less covered and had a fur coat.
Yes. Okay. All right. Next.
Remember when when the broom moved itself across the room and then knocked on the door?
I thought it was beautiful. Really, truly beautiful. Veronica Lake is just gorgeous. And I love her hair. It's almost as pretty as Jason's. And almost pretty. And it was really beautiful. I loved every second of it. I thought that it was so charming and sweet. I loved that they burned down the giant house built for pilgrims. I thought that was quite funny. No, very clever, very funny, very sweet. It was the perfect Valentine's Day by myself.
I was really surprised that of the two witches, one of them was a man, because we have our heroine witch and her father, which just seemed really strange to me because almost always it's women and not men in those kind of situations.
Say that again, Jason, because I was reading Donald Bates wrote something and he said my name, so I was reading that. So I didn't hear that last bit because I'd like to respond to that.
Well, yeah, I was waiting for you to respond to that. Like, it was a question for Heather posed as a statement. But it's one of those things where I was surprised that you have two witches and one of them's a male. It was, the father of our heroine, which, just was kind of shocking to me because it's almost always female witches.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And I really need to propose to Mystic South Atlanta to finally do the workshop on male witches because everybody keeps asking me to do it. And because there's so few, like you said, especially at this time. Witches,
it's just me and Richard-Lael, and then there's nobody else.
Literally, you guys and the dad here. So in the actually one of the first accused witches. So he wasn't really a witch in silent film. One of the very first witches was actually a male witch. It'll come to me. It's a book they redid. He's a ghost witch, but there's very few outside of that. You have a few others. They usually appear, especially during this time, as relatives of the main female witch. So you have the brother, for example, in Bell Book and Candle. You have the uncle in Bewitched. You have
hello, Sammy.
Yeah, he's fantastic, isn't he? And you have the dad. I love this dad, and I love his drunk scene. That is my favorite. I don't know. I love drunk scenes from Golden Era. They're hysterical if they're done well. But that's what his role is. His role is to make her more likable because she has a family. It's also setting up the idea that witches are their own species because they reproduce and make other witches. So it sets them apart from human beings as well. So he does a lot of, and he's also comedy. He's that comedic jokester that you see Jack Lemmon play in Bell Book and Candle as the brother. So he has a number of different narrative roles, but it's very rare that a man is called a witch in Hollywood cinema. Flat out called a witch. He's usually a wizard, Satan. He appears as Satan, a wizard, a warlock. In rare cases, a warlock. People think that's more common than it is. It's really not. But warlock, he's not called
boy band member, as we all know.
What was that? He's called what?
Boy band member, as we all know.
Boy band covenant. Come on, don't mess with covenant. There we go.
Happy Valentine's Day to me. That's how we're out here.
We should have repeated that, Courtney.
Courtney, Robert Hicks has a question for probably since you are in Salem and you know the best. Is there any record of how many male witches were found guilty in Salem?
So actually, that's what I was just pulling up there to double check my numbers because I wanted to talk about that. People are very surprised when they come to Salem that there was any men accused at all, and there were What?
More weight.
Well, right. So he wasn't the only one. So there was out of the 19 people who were hanged, 5 were men. 5 were men, and then Giles Corey, who was pressed to death. So he wasn't technically found guilty because he was tortured to death during his his interrogation. But there was out of 19, 5 of them were men, and people are surprised by that. Now,
I'm sorry.
I just want to preface by saying none of them were actual witches, but it's important, I think, to realize that this was not something that was, just pointed at women in the 1600s.
I wanted to say too, Courtney, that like Giles, who asked for more weight, he was pressed to death. I myself, my very first job, I actually used to have to squash soda cans. My job was so depressing.
Wait a minute. We need that drum.
My husband just left. I need a drum shot.
Turn your light off. Turn that lantern off.
If I could turn it up, I would actually.
Turn it off.
I think we should just have the sound effect ready to go now or something.
Yeah, that should be
it's just
easy.
really necessary.
Producer Rob. Sound effects. We need like one of those little sound effects.
Can I just address Haley Castellano said, wasn't Proctor accused of being a witch? Yes, he was executed for witchcraft.
What's the movie? Not the movie. The book. For some reason, my brain is just completely forgetting it. It's the Hawthorne story. Who was a resident of Salem who wrote a lot about what was about the house. It's a
Seven Gables.
Yes, thank you. The House of Seven Gables. That was the first Hollywood movie that was made that had a male witch in it. Technically an accused man, but that is the story of a man who a rich man wanted the land of this poorer man, and so he got accused of witchcraft and was killed. So that's the basic story. A lot of in Hollywood you have some of those, but most male witches that Hollywood used them as jokesters because it's a joke that a male can't be a witch, and if they are a witch, it's funny. So that's the way Hollywood treated male witches up until the 60s, when you start to have the infiltration of the occult. And once that happens, once you have Crowley and not the Satanic Temple, the Church of Satan and Anton LaVey, and you start to have that and the interest in the cult, that's when you start to see a lot of ceremonial magician types. You start to see the same. The House of the House of Black Death, I think is the name of it, is a 1965 movie that has, maybe we'll do that one time. It's a really fun 1965 film that has 2 of that type of male witch in it. One of them actually has horns. It's a very interesting film. So you start to see that more and more in the 60s, and then you have more and more in the 70s, and then it goes away for a while, and then again in about the 2000s. So you have it come and go depending on. It's an interesting story. The male witch. It's a very interesting story. Totally different from when we talk about what female witches.
And the House of Black Death, boy, does that sound fun. It's like that mold that you didn't take care of in your bathroom has really gone crazy, and it's all over for you.
We the House of Black Death, and then we can follow it with Satan's School for Girls. I mean, it's fun stuff. Although they're close to the 70s, so Courtney might not be happy. We might need to get back to the 40s and 50s. I got some there too. There.
As long as we can break it up. Also, so there's a couple questions actually in the chat that I'd love to take a second and address if you don't mind. Tabitha, this isn't a question, but Tabitha Meadows said he threw out one wicked curse at the end, though, as he was being pressed about Giles Corey. And that's actually another one of the really fun stories. It's not fun as the wrong word. It was a very fun story, especially. But, so as there's a legend in Salem. So this person who is not a witch, supposedly cursed the whole city of Salem. And they said that as he was being pressed to death, his last words were the sheriff, George Corwin, "I curse you, George Corwin. I curse you and the city of Salem. I curse you in blood." And then he died. And Corwin, who was the high sheriff, he, I forget what, he was really young, but he died from some kind of heart condition or blood condition. And some
because
people
he got high.
choked because he choked on his own blood and died. And then every person to hold the position of the High Sheriff of Salem from then until like modern day, when they moved it ceremoniously to like another town, to supposedly break the curse, either died while they were in office or suffered from a blood or heart condition, and or suffered such a severe blood or heart condition while they held the position that they had to be removed from office until this changeover happened. And then the city, all around this cemetery, it's now a cemetery where he was pressed to death, there will be sightings every once in a while of his spirit. And people wholeheartedly believe in this, that if you see him, tragedy is about to befall the city of Salem. So the Great Fire of 1914, they had to have a police presence in the cemetery because he was being cited so often and people were coming out to gawk at him, that the residents of the street that the cemetery is on called to complain so many times that they just posted cops outside. And then after about a week of this, the fire started, and it started right at the base of what was Gallows Hill, which is where the executions took place, and then tore through the city and destroyed a third of the city. And then there's been other instances like that where sightings of Giles Corey have preceded tragedies about Salem. So for someone who wasn't a witch,
maybe he
he
was.
sure did curse a lot. But then Mary Jane King asked, why were men in Salem prosecuted for witchcraft? Well, by the time everything was going, it had nothing to do with, I caught this person making a salve and like, this was terrible. It was mass hysteria. So everyone was seeing witchcraft everywhere and people were taking advantage of that. So if they had somebody that they didn't like, or there was their neighbor that they felt they could profit from them not being there anymore, or they were annoyed with them, they could go and say, oh my God, I saw their specter and it was attacking me and this is terrible. And then that was it. And it became, like a land grab and greed and politics and all this stuff.
And maybe they saw their neighbor out at 3:00 in the morning with a full face of makeup, wearing nothing but a fur coat.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to add to that, because that's something Mary Jane King said is there's an idea that there's only female witches. That's a trope, but there actually always were male witches, and of course, there have always been male magical people and female magical people, and whether they use the word witch or not is some do, some don't. We use it today in different ways. Some people still don't use it that we might say are witches. But I just worked on a book, which is fantastic. It's going to be coming out this coming fall, called Alpine Witchery. And it's actually accounts, it's just one more example of this, but accounts of witchcraft trials in Germany, Austrian Alp area, and some of the magic that was actually practiced, but a lot of the the accusations, the folk magic that was practiced, not called witchcraft. These people did not call it witchcraft, but there was tons of men that were accused. And he actually addresses that at the beginning of the book, where he talks about, while many people think the majority of people who were accused and killed for witchcraft were women, that actually was not the case. And you could be, whether you were actually doing a spell to bring rain, a folk magic thing that everybody did, or whether, like in the case of Hawthorne's story, you could have owned a piece of land that a rich person wanted, and that would get you accused of witchcraft. So whether you were actually practicing folk magic, being a witch or not, you still, male or female, you could be a witch. You could be accused of witchcraft and killed, and that actually still goes on today. I urge everybody who is interested in the topic to do some research on the witchcraft trials that happen or the witchcraft killings that happen in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, in India, in other around that whole area. You have a ton of this happening, very similar stuff going on, where people are accused because there's, like in the case of Tanzania, you have people being killed because their skin is light. They're being used for witchcraft. There you have people who, there's actually in Ghana, there was camps that were trying to protect women who were being accused of this. So you have this still going on in some parts of the world. And it's actually, UN has called it a crisis, and has recognized this as a human rights crisis. But, in Europe and here, it's not the case. But yes, men.
Well, it does travel into Europe. You see it sometimes. I've seen it in the UK, where immigrants come over and then they're like, my sister's a witch and I'm going to murder her. Right. I mean, it's it's really scary, like how these things are still happening in
I
the
think
year
we just saw
2023, 2024, right?
What I think
Yeah.
there was a news story of one just happening here in the U.S. It's rare in the
Yeah.
U.S., but yeah.
It does happen here too.
It happens a lot here, actually.
Yeah.
If I can just hop in for the spirit of just having correct information, Melissa commented with 6 were executed, 7 if you count Giles Corey, and then listed some names. Wilmot Red was a female. So Sam Wardwell, John Proctor, John Willard, George Jacobs, George Burroughs, and Giles Corey are the men. Wilmot sounds like a male name when you read it, but Wilmot was a woman. Sorry.
Well, getting
you
back,
know that the thing that I stand on is the correct information about Salem, so that's just wanted to.
When are we gonna sell like Witches Movie Coven weekends in Salem? Mostly just so I have an excuse to have Courtney take me everywhere.
Jason, why do you need an excuse? Let's go.
I'm going up there this summer. My daughter's first time in Salem, so we're looking forward to a tour, Courtney.
Yeah,
I'm right there with you.
Maybe I gotta find an excuse. Yeah,
absolutely.
The excuse
I
is
like to
you
bring.
wanna come see me.
I like to bring it back to the movie real quick, and talk about how we're talking about how people were killing for witchcraft and all this modern witchcraft stuff during the 1940s. Mostly Hollywood in America didn't believe witchcraft was real. It was silly. We had gone through the age of reason through the Victorian era, and most of it was relegated to silly stuff, to kid stuff. So we gone through the spiritualism movement. It was as far as they got. And then once that ended, Hollywood, and I actually have documents where they say nobody's going to believe that witchcraft is real. Nobody's going to believe that she's an agent of Satan. That's silly. Nobody's going to believe that. So it's actually considered something very silly. Witchcraft is the perfect subject for a screwball comedy, because the American public, the censors, the Hollywood moguls, they all thought, witchcraft is just a fun, silly thing. It's not real. It's superstition. It wasn't even offensive. It wasn't even something that was, creating the drama and horrors that we saw during the Inquisition or during these early periods of Salem. It just was considered silly. It wasn't real. So if you were called a witch, it was silly. You were being, so that didn't change, of course, until later. So this topic is really good for the screwball comedy. So, and especially if you have a male witch, that's even funnier.
And these two were so funny because they were trying to be so evil. They were the cutest, funniest, non-evil. They were unapologetically evil, and we're going to curse them. It's like, oh, you're so cute.
I mean, they did cause Pompeii to be buried under ash and Mount Vesuvius to erupt. I mean, the dad was pretty evil. I mean, though I did enjoy when they come back from the tree and they're like, what crops can we ruin and stuff, and I really felt like I was reading a transcript from the witch trials, because people thought witches did all those kind of things back then.
Well, it was, and they were just pulling stuff for fun, at this point.
Oh, yeah.
They never. There was going to be a movie based on witches in Mexico, and they sent it back, and they canceled the film, and I can't remember the name of it. It was something witch, I can't remember. And they said, no, nobody's going to believe this. Witchcraft's not real. These are the actual documents, production documents that I have, because I was looking to see that kind of stuff when I was doing my studies, but nope. They just pulled all kinds of whatever lore they could and threw it in to make a really funny comedy. That opening is so fun. The where they're passing out. What do they call it?
I had only seconds to be mad before I was completely sold on the movie. Because it was so good.
It is. It's a really great. Forget about witchcraft films. It's a really fun screwball comedy from this era.
It almost ends poorly, right? For the couple at the center of the film. And I'm looking at it, and it's like, oh my God, there's only 4 minutes left. How do they come together and live together happily for eternity? And I was super worried for a second. That's how caught up in this movie that I was. I wanted them to have their happy ending.
And they did. And she's all buttoned up, and she's no longer the sexy witch with the long hair and living her free life. She's now the buttoned up proper wife, sitting in her little wingback chair, doing her little whatever she was doing. And then the little girl comes in with the broom, and I'm like, yeah, there you go. And that I imagine that girl to be Samantha. But
excepting for the fact that would make Veronica Lake and Dora, and she is not.
I know, but like maybe a Samantha like. No, she's not in Dora. But still, it's kind of like I always think of Bewitched as sort of like chapter 2 of this movie and Bell Book and Candle. So sort of that kind of feel. Like this is what happens after. If Jennifer was going to have a series, it would be Bewitched.
I was like reading some background on the film, and I was surprised by how much Veronica Lake and Fredric March did not like each other while the filming was going on. And Veronica Lake would wear weights anytime that he had to pick her up. So she was an additional 40 pounds heavier. So he's holding her and she's like super heavy and he doesn't understand why. And he's kind of like being exhausted on the set. And then I guess there's another time, and she writes about this in her biography, where the camera's on him and they're sitting like apart, like across from each other. And she reaches out with her leg and like is kind of like lightly kicking him in the groin. And apparently he just finishes his lines like a professional, but they did not like one another at all. And I think that adds like a whole other dimension to the film, which I thought was pretty funny while I was watching it.
What a queen. Yes, we love a petty queen, Megan.
And oh my God, what girl would add weight when a boy has to pick her up? That in itself.
Betty Davis when Joan Crawford. No, Joan Crawford
Really?
when Betty Davis.
Mm-hmm.
Other way around. Joan Crawford would.
That's crazy. All right. Well, we have discussed the film. I guess we get to vote on the film. Oh, no, we do.
Courtney.
Okay.
Oh, we have quotes.
We're running out of time. I wrote a lot of quotes down, so I'm just gonna pick a few because
We got 15 minutes. We're rolling. Let's do this.
I know, but we need a Mankey minute, and we have voting and talking.
That's only a minute.
I got
I'm talking
We
about
got-
it. Just
we
go
got
straight
lots
out
of
with the
time.
Calm down. Everybody relax. Ever hear of the decline and fall of the Roman Empire? That was our crowd. That was one of them. I screamed when he said, "Goodbye, Jennifer. Be a bad girl." When Wallace said, I'm afraid you've got a hangover," and Daniel said, "Don't tell me what I've got. I invented the hangover. It was in 1892 BC. For tonight, I marry Mary B. Tomorrow, I'll be sober." "'Twould be nice," Jennifer says, "'twould be nice to have lips to whisper lies, lips to kiss a man and make him suffer. Father, why cannot I have lips and eyes and hair?" I want that tattooed on me. Lips to kiss a man and make him suffer.
I put that in my book. That's actually a quote I used in my book. So good choice.
The whole exchange where she's trying to feed him the love potion and she's wearing the dress and what she said, "I don't like the tone of your voice," and he said, "Well, I swallowed some smoke last night and then I swallowed some more," and she's like, "Well, drink this and then I'll listen to anything you have to say." "Oh, well, it's late." The doctor says, "Oh, well, it's late. I've got to be getting into my straitjacket. I'll call a broom." "It's okay. He fell out a window." And then we kind of touched on this, I think, but every man who marries the wrong woman. True suffering cometh when a man is in love with the woman he cannot marry. There you go.
Thank you. We were talking about the girls. Nobody mentioned the beautiful costumes, the dresses, the wardrobe was beautiful. Whoever did the wardrobe.
The music too. The music was so fun.
I love you truly.
Which is also in It's a Wonderful Life. Speaking of It's a Wonderful Life, that song is in It's a Wonderful Life too. Parallels. It's the synergy of all of these movies that we talk about.
Mostly because it's public domain, especially even by 1942.
Oh, that helps a lot. That might be the real factor here. Sorry, I'll just crawl into my corner.
I think it's time for the Mankey Minute since I always do these out of order.
Oh, we can go there. All right. Let's see. I have to find a special voice for this one because this is an old movie. You know, they always talk funny in old
Yeah.
movies.
If you're going to do it, you have to do a mid-Atlantic accent.
That's right. I want to talk to you about something today. Something that a lot of you living in this enlightened age of the 1940s are not going to believe. I married a witch. That's right, a real witch. She's hundreds of years old and was accused of witchcraft by my great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. That witch wanted to roll in the hay while rolling in the hay with the old pappy Puritan Jonathan Woolley. But he held out, you know, like only a good man with the power of the Lord can. No carnal cravings for that man, just enough lust to perpetuate the bloodline. But a witch, I married a witch. And after she was burned at the stake, her immortal soul was imprisoned in the roots of an oak tree, because that's a real scientific kind of thing that happens to witches. Only being set free after a freak lightning strike freed her as a puff of smoke. That's right, I married a witch who was also a puff of smoke. She tried to put a spell on me, but there's just no way a dame can outwit a man. Doesn't matter how pretty her hair is, men are just sharper. But the real doozy is her father. Got him locked up in a scotch bottle, I tell ya. That's the smokiest scotch you'll ever sip, too, because there's a real witch in it. One thing you don't want for a father-in-law is a homicidal witch. And these aren't the ravings of a madman, because I'm this state's governor. And of course, most of you know, I really did marry a witch. Sadly, she doesn't turn into a puff of smoke, but she does know how to pick out a good scotch. And so far, every bottle has been father-in-law free. Happy Valentine's Day to my coven, but also, of course, happy Valentine's Day to my wife, Ari.
Oh, yeah.
Which is pointless to suck up to her on this show because she doesn't watch anything that I do. So it's just wasted breath on my part.
It almost made me believe in love again, but not quite.
Yeah, now it's dead. Yeah. Sorry, Courtney, I killed it.
We still have power panties on our head. And on that note,
That's right.
now we vote. Wands up, wands down, Cupid's up, Cupid's down. Everybody, please, in the chat room, what do you think of this movie? I Married a Witch. Up, 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 up. We are unanimous, rare, and rare
Unanimous.
in our covenant self. Hilarious. Wand sky high, says Robert Hicks. Aw, says Christy. Vote, folks. Vote, folks. I don't know what a sideways post.
Oh, Haley's
no.
giving it a half up.
Oh, it's
Half down.
It's a half up. Is it
Yeah.
all up? I haven't seen it. One's up, one's up, one's up, horns up. Okay, here we go. 1942. It's not hard to find online.
You can watch it on YouTube on your phone, like Patty and I did.
Yep.
Yeah,
And there were
neat.
no commercials like on it too, which was amazing.
I don't know.
I have
paid
to
for
say-
premium.
Robert Hicks earlier said something about more movies that are like this. There are no other screwball comedies that are witch films. So like that are this type of screwball comedy. There are other movies from this era that have witches, but there's no other witchy screwball comedies. There's many screwball comedies, and I'm happy to list them on our Facebook page for some really good ones. Make a list for y'all, but there's no more screwball comedies with witches, unfortunately.
Sad.
From this
Maybe
era.
Maybe somebody needs to make one.
Maybe
Make
we
a
should
movie.
make one.
We could have a tree in it too, a tree with a map.
With boots. And tell me that broom that rolled across the floor to knock on the door didn't have wheels. Tell me it didn't. Because I know it did.
What if we had a tree with boobs and butts? That would be everything all at once from our show.
Shh. Stop giving away our intellectual property.
You
We'll
know-
have to talk about this after the show.
The best part about being a tree is the constant wood.
Oh my
Oh, we
goodness.
need a sound effect. Yes.
I'm gonna need
Mr.
to
Rob, work on that.
in front of my wand and my Black Phillip. How dare you?
Oh, please, your Black Phillip's like bleeding out of his butt.
He's the girl with
Is a
panties.
modest fellow. This is my
You need to send that to Heather to get
Burden.
fixed. You need to fix that Black Phillip.
I will
No.
fix your Black Phillip. We've talked about
Me?
this.
And I will send you a replacement goat for that period of time because I own many stuffed goats.
all right. Well, when the replacement goat comes, then maybe I'll be able to let him. But look at him. He lives his best life this way.
No.
You know, yeah.
My Black
This is
Phillip, you
how-
don't look at that. That's terrible.
Looks like he's losing his intestines.
Yeah.
That's not his intestines. That's his. Look at how his legs go. That's his butthole.
Okay. What are we watching next week?
Oh goodness. I forgot to look before. Is it Princess Bride next week?
Dark
Shadows.
Dark Shadows
Oh,
next
What are we
week.
watching?
Dark Shadows.
Like
Original or the terrible adaptation? I mean, sorry, I can't give away my opinion.
Not the original from the 70s. We're watching the movie that was made more recently.
Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp. Yes.
Okay. All right. I like it. I mean, I don't like it. I mean, I won't tell you. I mean, I'm not going to tell you anything, even if it's horrible. I'm not going to tell you. That's it.
And it's all a secret, so nobody knows how everybody likes it. I haven't seen it, so as always, I haven't seen it. I'm going to say, Patty, Screening Room. Oh yes, I am probably on Ghost Adventures tonight. They're doing Screaming Room of what we did at the Hotel Cecil, so that should be really interesting for those of you who like Ghost Adventures. It's Vampire Week, so anybody come out to LA, we've got tonight, starting tonight, we'll be out Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night. Throw on your fangs, throw on something red because it is Valentine's. And
Underwear on the head works.
Underwear on the head works. And I think it's a whole new look for Power Panties. Hey, Rob, should we put this up on the site? The Power Panty newest model. So you guys, anybody have anything coming up? Again, I'm going to be in Vegas in 2 weeks. I'm doing a whole witchy weekend at Halloween Emporium. Check out Power Panties, secret code Patty to get 25% off of my Power Panties. You could wear them for a hat, a scarf, or on your bum. On your bum. So many choices, so many styles. And that's it. Anybody else have anything coming up?
I do.
Go, Courtney.
Go ahead, Jason.
No, you're in the big box now. Oh, like, woo. I'm going to be in Detroit next weekend at Convocation, which is a big pagan festival in the Midwest of about 1,000 people. I won't be here live on our show because I will be traveling next Wednesday. Sadness. But yeah, that's where I'll be. And other places too. Pagonicon's coming up. And then Sacred Space, which is in Maryland. So yeah, I'll be on the road.
On the road again. And Courtney?
So this Friday we have another episode of Scared and Alone coming up. Yeah, that promo code doesn't work anymore because the last tour was tonight, so ignore the anti-Valentine's Day tour. But we're doing Scared and Alone again, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you missed it, we did our first episode of season 2 this past Sunday. Patty and Richard-Lael were there, and it was crazy. And during that time, we ran a contest. I'm not going to announce the winner until Friday, but there is a winner. So if you watched and commented on Sunday, make sure that you watch and comment on Friday so that I can tell you who won our comment contest. And that's it. Oh, and I won't be here next week either because I'm also traveling because I'm going on vacation. So I'll miss you guys.
Where are you going on vacation?
Guess.
Disney World.
Disney World.
Wait a minute. You're going to be in Florida next week on Wednesday?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be in the same state.
Are you going to be at Disney World?
I'm not. My brother will be there, but no, I'm going to be in St. Augustine. I'm traveling to St. Augustine next Wednesday, but I will be available. I'll be in our place. I will be available for the show from St. Augustine. So,
Hey.
And I am hoping that I can stop into the lovely store in the middle of this historic district of St. Augustine called My Cauldron 2. So I'm hoping to be there. So if you're in the St. Augustine area, message me, and I may be doing a talk or doing a book signing at My Cauldron 2 in St. Augustine. I can't believe we're going to be in the same state. I'm going to feel like, there's going to be a disturbance in the force while I'm down there.
Well, I have a surprise for you, Heather, because guess where I'm going in April?
St. Augustine.
You're going Atlanta or St. Augustine?
Atlanta.
And I'm going to see you in Salem in the summer. So
yeah,
possibly. Okay, we'll talk about Atlanta later because I will be here. I am going to make that happen. We're going to talk about that. But anyway, so besides St. Augustine, I am going to be at Paganicon in March. Jason will be there too. So come see us there. It's super fun. I'm doing 3 workshops there. One that might get me in trouble. And of course, we are planning Mystic South. This is only 2 more weeks for the early bird tickets, and also to apply to teach if you would like to teach or present. You've got 2 more weeks to get it in. If you get chosen, just so you know, if you get chosen to be a presenter, you don't have to pay for the ticket. You get comped in, you don't have to buy the ticket. So come on down to Atlanta in July. We want to see y'all. Come on down. And we have a really great 3 days worth of all kinds of mystical stuff. So check us out there too. I'm on the board, so that's why. And I will be presenting maybe a Male Witches workshop.
Ooh.
In Hollywood. Male Witches in Hollywood workshop.
Cool.
That's it for now.
All right. Anybody else? Did I miss anybody else?
Well, I mean, I'm the gentleman psychic. I'm easily found. I'm here in New Orleans. I'm not really going anywhere, but I will not be here next week. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to be here always. Anyway, yeah, thegentlemanpsychic.com. And you can find me at universitymagicus.com. I teach at University Magicus. And also I paint ghosts on Scared and Alone, and you definitely don't want to miss Scared and Alone because it is going to be fun. I don't know anything about where we're going, but it's going to be a lot of fun this Friday, and I have to actually go prep a canvas from here because I forgot it was this week.
Will Courtney be wearing power panties on her head during Scared and Alone this week?
Great
You're
question.
gonna have to tune in and see, because maybe this is my new look, but you won't know until Friday at 9 Eastern when you tune in and watch me.
Fair.
Maybe I should send you some different styles. Various styles would make fabulous.
Patty, I'm telling you, the thong would look great right here over my ponytail. Like, I would wear it.
Okay. All right. We're working on it. Yes. Like us, follow us, social media. It's important. We don't know why. Like us, follow us, buy our books, come see us, check out University Magicus and see Richard-Lael and myself. Again, watch Ghost Adventures tonight. I'm sure it's there. Friday, make sure you turn in to Scared and Alone. Come to Vegas in 2 weeks. Go to Mystic South. Go to all these places because we're lonely and we want you. So get a goat and come back next week. And we're late. Oh my God. I just looked at the time. I am a very bad host today. I'm so sorry. We have one more thing to do. Is there something other than cackle or I love you?
We're going to just cackle.
I thought we just made kissy faces at each other.
No, we'll cackle.
All right, we're going to cackle.
2, 3. Yeah.